Welcome to the Returning Raven, Clarity Points for Truth, where we look closer at the yoga you don't know, the one with hidden forms, worldview, sorcery, and philosophy that clouds and deceptively influences culture, church, family, and you. I'm Dr. Alana Arguello. It's time to leave the fog, get out of the gray, and into the light. Join me today at the Clarity Point. Hello, welcome to the Returning Raven, Clarity Points for Truth. I'm your host, Dr. Alana Arguello. Today, we are going over postures, or chapters, 21 and 22, titled The Shining I Ams and Flowers and Thrones, from my book, Unearthing Yoga's Ancient Roots, Exposing Sorcery and its Transcultural Reach, available on Amazon. Yoga was practiced in certain forms before the Vedic period. Ideas from the Vedas would influence the philosophical system of yoga that came about the 3rd century AD. By the 5th century AD, a system was established to categorize all variations of yoga today. Let's go over the core beliefs within this system and consider if any of these ring a bell in terms of Gnosticism especially, or New Age practices, or just practices done in general by the culture today, and recognize its foundation in witchcraft, gnosis as a means to salvation, philosophy and meditation, contemplation, like focusing your mind on objects, going into the silence and isolation to empty your mind, and that these things could save you from life and suffering. Contemplation on even one God, doing the empty mind Eastern practices, and to focus on one God supreme. This is bhakti yoga. Consciousness raising, for example, one way the Vedic poets did this was by poetry, through hymns or music to journey to God. Control of breath, breathing exercises. Divine eye, yoga meditation, used to become omniscient and know the past and the future and realize the divine within. Supernatural skills like entering bodies or creating more bodies. The earliest yogis in literature reportedly could do this. Power of flight, clairaudience, telepathy, invisibility, and the recollection of past lives. One of the first calls of yoga is to have you look at the suffering of your own suffering and those around you. Not to help about the suffering, but rather to look at it so you grow to learn that this can't be it. This world must be wrong, an illusion, and yoga can help you get out of this illusion world. I've mentioned, and we will look again later, at the fact that historically, pagan worship enters a culture or a person's life during great wealth or tragedy. I don't think it's a coincidence that yoga is offered during or after a great loss or tragedy, and that it wants you to utilize yoga so you can deny reality, think the world is an illusion, and escape it. He gets people when they are at their most vulnerable, when they are confused, feel lost, and maybe wish they could escape the pain of this world. Yoga swoops in with the way, the answer, the thing that will make it better. Remember, yoga historically has been applied to mean path. In fact, faith in yoga is said to move mountains. As you realize this world is an illusion, so you can not only escape the pain, but to release all desires and recognize your own power, to recognize yourself as the I am I, and learn to be victorious, a conqueror of death. But you, God, are self and not self, because you are God, but you're all God. You must lose individuality, your identity, what makes you unique and fearfully and wonderfully made, and join the collective whole of all God. In other words, you focus on self to lose self, really to lose self to the whole. A posture in yoga can be physical, like in gym yoga, or sitting, like in meditation. In the gym or studio yoga, it is called in Sanskrit sun and moon god worship, with the context that the masculine and feminine that is in all persons should be balanced, made neutral. Its word at root, hatha yoga, means forceful or violent. Whether in a moving or sitting posture, each represents the lotus flower, and they are seats or thrones of a deity. When you are in the throne, so when you're in the posture, which is you get into the posture, you are getting into the throne of the deity. You bring yourself to the door of a guru beyond time that supposedly can transform itself as your desired guiding Lord. This should cause some alarm when people say they can practice yoga as a form of worship or to hear God. It is not the God of the Bible speaking to them, but this masked entity called Parama Guru. Though you may not experience the following, it is a sure sign you've encountered this entity if you experience seeing glittering stars, lightning flashes, color waves, or a deep ocean of light. The ancient yogis depicted humanity's evolution, including the evolution of the individual consciousness, as a progression within 7 centers. The names of the postures, or asanas, are significant and illustrate the principle of evolution that is held within yoga. The body takes on many shapes and images. That's important here. Images. You are taking on, you're not only sitting in the postures of a throne of a deity, but you are taking on the image of various living creatures found in creation, from bugs to gurus. The practitioner then learns that the all-pervading spirit of God breathes in all to feel the presence of God. Let's take that in for a moment. Have you heard anyone in the church today telling you to do breath exercises to feel the presence of God? Careful. The 7 centers are symbolic places that are located along a person's spinal column. These 7 centers are referred to as chakras or lotuses. While the term chakra means wheel, it is symbolic in that it represents the movement of life process, the evolution of one's consciousness, and that of collective humanity. The lotuses are also symbolic, as they represent the slow blossoming of a full-grown flower above the water from its genesis as a rooted bulb, thereby symbolizing how one develops from a primitive state of being to a highly enlightened state of existence. Chakras are occultic stations for psychic energy. Allow me to explain further. When prana, which is breath or the life force, pushes through the points of energy up through the spine, the Kundalini, who is the female serpent or python who's coiled at the base of the spine, gets awakened to start the evolutionary process to God. Prana, breath control, and its manipulation gives knowledge, unlimited power, and mental illumination. Furthermore, the chakras are also likened to occult fire, and the Kundalini is the ember that, once awakened, can grow bigger within. Tantric yoga can be inflamed to a massive fire and may be called the Great Awakening or the Immortal Drought. It is sometimes referred to as supreme bliss. In this type of yoga, the blaze can cause death and madness. Voices of spirits or sounds guide one along the process. So in yoga, you will begin to hear a voice or voices and sounds. Once awakened, the Kundalini moves through the chakras, ending at the 7th at the top of the head. Then Kundalini allows one to open oneself to power with the union of the divine. The focus on meditation and breath, and even physical moving posture yoga, is because yoga can cause pain, and the attention should aid the muscles to get relaxed or slackened for the purpose that it is easier for you to get to the point of yoga's goal, believing you are God. People might say yoga relaxes your muscles, and yes, but not for what you may think. Let's break down something here that sums up parts of what you've learned so far, and that will be elaborated on as we move forward. The doctrine of yoga path is for you and everyone else to have revealed from within that you and everyone else are the following: judge of the world, creator of truth and way, limitlessness, infinite, all-powerful, omnipotent, all-knowing, omniscient, all-present, omnipresent, self-existent, the I am, creator. Yoga doesn't just say you are God. Yoga gives the titles, names, and divine attributes that only belong to the God of the Bible. Yoga instead takes it from the God of the Bible and gives it to you and everyone else. Satan is trying to get the world to collectively usurp the throne of God via yoga, or at least to make them think they can. But to what end? The only end he knows for us is to steal, kill, and destroy. To think we can pick and choose from Satan's culture and come out without a burn, even when Satan's yoga doctrine tells us directly that the python will in fact set you on fire. Satan has consistently throughout history repackaged and redressed yoga forms to do just that. But somehow the church continues to participate in the deception. Or they may deny one part of the lie but accept another. Like, oh yeah, Gnosticism is bad. It came about in the early church and it's bad. Or maybe we accept that trying to have telepathy or clairaudience is actually witchcraft. So we say, don't do it. But at the same time, we'll pick out yoga and say, it's nothing. It won't hurt me. I can do gym yoga. But it's all yoga. It's all part of the yoga path. In the Bible, God gives us specifics of time and culture, even names of people and leaders, so we can track an archaeology, which is proof of its authenticity and that it is historically true. It also allows for us to know what was pagan back then and compare it to what still exists today, like yoga. But also, why didn't God in his perfect word list all the various forms of pagan worship and sorcery beyond the list in Deuteronomy? Which I guess arguably the list in Deuteronomy could sum up all of them collectively. And also I should tell you, yoga fits into all of that list in Deuteronomy, which we talk about in other places. But why does God, the Holy Spirit, include the region in which the pagan worship occurred, yet have Paul and others just refer, in totality for the most part, pagan worship? Because it is all from Satan, and it is all the same practices over and over, repeated down through the years, just reordered, repackaged, made to fit the time period. If God says all their worship practices are an abomination, why, or rather, how dare we then pick and choose what is called pagan worship and what isn't, just to suit our fancy? Pagan worship is like a pagan paper doll. Lots of accessories, lots of outfits, but the doll is the same, pagan. But too often, professing Christians continue to buy the lie that something is new or safe. Let me end here with an example that just got brought to my attention the other day. Most Christians know they shouldn't touch a Ouija board. But at one point in our not-so-distant past, the Ouija board was packaged and put out by a major big board game maker and distributor. It was put out there for families like it was the same as Checkers or Twister or Monopoly, just a game. It was sold as fun, safe, marketed as and by mainstream business. If Satan will do that with something so obviously occult as the Ouija board, and people, including in its early distribution days, even some Christian families bought the lie that it's just a game, what makes you think that Satan won't sell and market you yoga through industry and business as something fun and safe? Especially when yoga in its entire system holds to all forms of witchcraft. The whole world is reaching for yoga. How about the church be set apart? Quit playing in the game of darkness. repent, and turn back to worshiping God wholeheartedly in spirit and truth. Let's choose this day whom we will serve and get the pagan worship out. Thank you for joining me today on The Returning Raven. I'm your host, Dr. Alana Arguello. I'll see you at the next Clarity Point for Truth. Thank you for joining me today on The Returning Raven. I'm Dr. Alana Arguello. For a closer look again at truth, I'll see you at the next Clarity Point.